дико, я shiny, пару лямов money on my neck, gold money rain.
It's my name, это мой money rain, no pain, no gain, иди нахуй Monday. The raise my name, ра-та-та, bang, bang, заряжай, бляха, моя baby mother. It's my name, это мой money.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to Cypherfics. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the first part of What If Ichigo Finds Harry Potter. Special note, this fanfic is written in a masterpiece of Kourtney Yato on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Harry James Potter was seething on his lumpy mattress that barely qualifies for a bed. He just finished the last letters he received from Ron and Hermione. The short version was that Dumbledore has forbidden them to contact him for the duration of the summer when he was staying at his relative's house. Soon afterward, he received a letter from the Bloody Tosser himself saying that he would have to spend the entire summer there to charge the wards now that Voldemort has risen, and that he stopped his subscription to the Daily Prophet so he would not be tempted. Along with having an Order member watching the house, he had to be very careful about releasing Hedwig, so she would not be captured and he would not be truly alone this summer. It has been an entire month since he has returned from Hogwarts, and he truly lost any will to care for any of Dumbledore's fuck buddies and his friends who jumped on the merry bandwagon of traitors. At least Sirius wasn't a part of it, considering he was just as much a prisoner in his own home as well and wanted out badly. Harry stared out the window, knowing the routine the Order members had on watching him constantly. They would circulate every 8-hour shifts. However, the only good part of the routine was that Dung was there constantly, as everyone had their jobs and lives to live. But the worst was Moody, with that eye of his, but he made sure to keep a low profile during his shift. He got off the mattress and looked out the window and waited silently as the wind brushed against his face and waited for the telltale sign of Dung. When the scent of liquor hit him and he let out a smirk and knew it was time to send his letters. Harry had several letters to send out and always waited until Dung's shift started during the night. He tied the letters to Hedwig and she took off, promising to be back safe in their own special way of communicating. He closed the window with a sigh as he watched Hedwig's form fade into the night and locked it. His homework for the summer was already done. He wasn't stupid, far from it. But the Dursleys and Ronald's jealousy streaks were not worth the effort putting in time. He slowly walked down the steps, his relatives scowling at the sight of him, but the threat at the train station managed to get through their thick skulls for the moment. He just made a sandwich, considering they had to feed him, and the threat that the freaks were watching them made them reconsider the thought of having him outside. However, the yard work and chores were now done by Petunia, which unfortunately for the Dursleys proved that Harry was much better at keeping the house stable than Petunia, much to her envy and renewed sense of hatred. After finishing eating his small sandwich, he tried to fall asleep, hopefully without nightmares. He shed the cast-offs and just slept in boxers, showing his scars and puncture wound on his arm from the second year. The thin sheets didn't shield him from the summer cold, and he kept his mouth close to his pillow so it would muffle out the screams of the night terrors. Harry's dream. Harry was forced to endure the same ritual that brought Voldemort back to life and the incompetence of the Ministry. Cedric's final words, his own shocked gasps, the traitor's stutters and the rising of Voldemort and his taunts to his present form. He was just so tired, he couldn't stop the despair-induced thoughts coming from him, along with the piles of shit he has to deal ever since he first entered the magic world. Sometimes I wonder if I could finally die, would have my peace. Am I forever doomed to be a puppet of Voldemort, Dumbledore, and the damn Ministry? What else am I supposed to do? Mom, Dad, Sirius, please anyone, help me, I don't want to lose anyone else. My heart is breaking. I need someone, anyone. After that, everything went dark and silent. Voldemort's taunts forever lost in the inky blackness of the area Harry resided in. A sound of light footsteps echoed throughout the black mindscape. The sound then stopped right in front of Harry's prone form. Poor thing. The figure then kneeled in their bare-shouldered crimson dress tied with a corset around the stomach down to a kimono fabric down to her feet with fabric sandals. The shadows did nothing to hide her pale figure, skin like moonlight. One eye was a vivid green, the other was red like blood. The back of her hair was held up in half a flower. The rest flowed down to her elbows in red waves. Her button nose and almond-shaped eyes softened at the state of the boy she has watched ever since he was born. "Don't worry, your weekdays will now be over." She reached over and pulled him into her lap, her right hand patting his head, running fingers through his hair, which glowed a mysterious red. Harry then snapped awake, and he looked around the barren bedroom. He slowly rose up and was about to step out of bed, but he miscalculated his step and ended up stumbling out of bed. A deeper groan caused him to fully wake up, and he stood up, trying to keep his balance as he felt different. It was like he was filled with energy. He stretched out his limbs, his bones popping back into place. He slowly walked towards the window and saw the sun. A familiar hoot got his attention, and Hedwig flew towards him. She cocked her head to the side as she looked at him strangely, but still came to him, expecting her chest rub and good morning. He kept rubbing her chest as his mind wandered back to a voice he heard last night. But what puzzled him was the feeling of being held that brought a feeling of comfort to him. His thoughts were interrupted by a harsh-sounding knock on his door, and it showed Petunia, who backed up 2 steps when he opened the door. Harry responded with a ragged-sounding yes. She didn't say anything but looked at Harry with renewed fear and slight jealousy. Harry didn't know what was wrong with her and clapped once to get her mind started once more. She stuttered out that the family was going to be gone for the rest of the day and that he would have to cook for himself. He nodded, and she rushed downstairs, desperately wanting to get away from the freakiness of her nephew. Harry went to the bathroom, considering Dudley, Petunia, and Vernon each had their own. He just used the guest one, and when he turned on the lights, he now understood why Petunia was so startled she could barely talk. Seriously, just yesterday he was on the verge of skinny, leaning towards malnourished with slight muscles thanks to Quidditch and being the shortest of the classmates. His height was now normal for someone his age, and his body filled out to become lean and toned almost to that of a swimmer. He shook his head, knowing that magic was the simple answer to everything to strange things in his life, and went to take a shower. The house was soon empty of his relatives as he trudged downstairs to make himself breakfast. However, he made plates of eggs, bacon, and other delicacies that loitered the fridge, and he ate literally everything he could. His relatives couldn't really complain. They cleared out the fridge every 3 days. He didn't know why, but he had an overwhelming feeling of hunger that wouldn't be sated. He couldn't stop himself from eating, and until the fridge was empty. What the young man didn't know was that his magic was filtering all the food he was eating, was slowly but surely giving him a healthy weight and figure, fixing his malnourishment from the lack of nutrients he had before. It would be a week and a half before the hunger would settle down, but until then he would have to make do to eat elsewhere, regardless of whether Dumbledore and his cronies wanted. If the Dursleys do decide to complain, I'll just treat them the way they treat me. I wonder how the massive beach whale can handle being stuffed inside the cupboard for 3 days with no food, he darkly smirked. Where the hell did that come from? Harry said, in shock of his own thoughts. He finished eating and washed the plates and put them back and walked up to his room, sealing the door shut. When he turned towards his bed, he saw someone that was definitely not there before. There was a woman who definitely did not deserve to be anywhere near his bed, considering how uncomfortable it was, but it didn't seem to bother her in the slightest. She was beautiful in every sense of the word, but he had a feeling he recognized her. He didn't think of himself as forgetful, but he was sure he would remember someone as beautiful as her. She giggled, making him blush. It appears you recognize me, even if only a little. I'm happy to meet you, Harry. How do you know my name? Because I have been watching you, little one. Harry's eyes widened, her voice. She smiled and brought her hands outward and wanting him to come to her. He couldn't stop his legs from moving towards her as she wrapped her arms around him, placing his head on her chest, hearing her heartbeat almost to the likeness of a lullaby. You were the one from my dream, weren't you? She smiled as she ran fingers through his messy hair. He couldn't stop himself from leaning into her touch, wanting her to keep doing what she was doing. I wish I could have talked to you sooner. Huh? What do you mean? The woman sharply said, Say my name. What? Harry replied, confused. Say my name. Say the name you gave me when we first met. Harry trembled in her arms as he racked his brain for her name. His hands clenched into fists as he tried to recall her name. It was on the tip of his tongue, but the words were jumbled, and he could not make any sense of it. Behind his eyes were memories, so many of them he hasn't recalled. Many of them were with the princess before him. Wait, princess? Yes, Princess Heim. Heim, my princess. Halfway there, young one. Almost there. What's the rest of it? Say my full name, Harry James Potter. She purred, squeezing him against her, as more memories poured out until something almost to the likeness of chains snapped all at once, opening the floodgates within Harry. Benayam. Benayam, my crimson princess. Harry stated, looking up into her multicolored eyes, his voice laced with power that would make Dumbledore and Voldemort stop in their tracks. Welcome back, my little master. She leaned down and kissed him, and then everything went white. Back in magical Britain, several things were happening. But first, let's check on our favorite hated hypocritical Dark Lord, shall we? Tom Marvolo Riddle, or the name he created for himself, Lord Voldemort, he who shall not be named, the Dark Lord, and so on, was having a terrible day so far. He had been happily tormenting Harry Potter, and thought that yesterday was the day he would finally be broken. However, he was forced out of his mind by someone who, although he would never admit it out loud, made him feel fear. Pure, unadulterated fear. That thing had madness, hatred, and bloodlust in their eyes, and it ran shudders down his spine. It would be a while before he would try torture Harry Potter through his mind again. However, this early morning, a massive pain overtook his body. Every part of him felt like it was on fire, and someone was breaking him into little pieces as he thrashed around in his large bed, screaming himself hoarse. Much to the shock of his Death Eaters present, and one of them rushed towards the fireplace to flew Severus Snape into saving their master's life. His head felt like it was going to explode. He couldn't believe the pain he was in. The connection he made between himself and Harry Potter was gone. The scar no longer had his soul piece, and that was leeching off his magic. Potter's BLD was boiling, rejecting Voldemort's body and the tainted magic inside it, causing him immense pain. Severus could only watch as the darkest lord of the century thrashed around in his bed, and he could see what was affecting him. It was the blood boiling underneath his skin. The blood he took from Potter. It was killing him, and he needed to be purged of it. He needed to make lots of blood-replenishing potion and fast. He needed one of the lower-tier Death Eaters to sacrifice themselves for their master. However, all of the inner circle chose to give their sacred blood to keep their master alive. What they didn't know was that was going to be their downfall. At Hogwarts, several spinning devices whistled at a high pitch before cracking and then shattering into pieces before either turning into dust or melting into cooling pools of metal. Dumbledore would never know. He was missing several tracking devices until Harry was already firmly out of his grasp. At Grimmauld Place #12, Sirius Black groaned as he woke up, to the loud screeching voice of Molly Weasley in the morning yelling at her sons. And she wonders why all of her older sons left the house as soon as they could. Sure as hell no, I would reappeared to the front of his mind before he pushed them back. He stood up and walked to his bathroom and rubbing his eyes with dark circles underneath them. Harry? Please, pup, just hang on a bit longer. He turned on the water in his shower and let the hot water run down his skin. He still had the connection between himself and Harry. Considering their relationship as godparent and godchild, yesterday night was awful. He could feel his pup's despair, and it nearly made him burst into tears. He wanted to tear out of the house, find the Dursleys, kill them, and have his godson in his arms, never to feel such crushing despair again. He got dressed as he thought about his pup. He didn't feel up to dealing with Molly and her snide comments during breakfast. He wasn't even up to eating in general as his mind would turn towards Harry and how he was doing. The connection between them told him that his emotional state was calm and neutral, and that was all he needed right now. Remus or Moony watched as Sirius or Padfoot walked down the stairs and past the kitchen, not even sparing a glance at the kitchen where everyone was loudly conversing and eating their food. Remus finished his coffee and found Sirius lying on the couch. His gray eyes clouded with thought, and the slight tinge of green told him that he was listening in with his godparent connection with Harry. He wondered how could he have thought his best friend capable of selling out James and Lily and leaving him to rot in Azkaban when he was innocent and the real traitor was Pettigrew, his form as a rat fitting him surprisingly well. Before he could get any deeper into his monologue, both Sirius and Remus were brought out of their thoughts when a scream rang through the house, waking up Mrs. Black's portrait and seeing Dumbledore walk into the kitchen with Severus on his side. twitching from overexposure to the torture curse. Snape was brought to a bed as Poppy came from the fireplace, cramming healing potions after healing potions down his throat and waving her wand diagnosing her new patient in his bed. His shudders toned down, but when she checked on his pulse by his arm, the dark mark on his arm was still not the inky black it once was. It was now a sickly gray and the skin around was raw and red. Poppy put a hand over her mouth. Oh my. How is Severus? Poppy? Albus asked, looking at Severus' pale form. He will need lots of bed rest with him being put under the torture curse over a constant period of time. He will have to explain the situation of how he came to be this way when he wakes up. Of course, thank you, Poppy. She nodded and went back to doing what she does best. Cramming disgusting potions down patients' throats. Back to Harry, who was now breathless from the long and passionate kiss from Benyam. He could barely keep his legs from buckling. Mountains of memories were buzzing around in his head. They were now brought forth and his vision was blurry now, and he finally recalled he was still wearing his glasses. He took them off, placing them on the bed and moved to sit next the beautiful woman looking at her with his emerald eyes. I've missed you so much, Harry. She brought his head to her chest. He hugged her and breathed in her cherry blossom scent mixed with a metallic scent of blood. I missed you too, thank you for bringing me back. Several owls tapped on his single window, which made him stand up to open the window and saw several owls with letters tied to their legs. He relieved the owls of their letters and they flew off into the sky with Hedwig lounging in the trees, and he could see the patch of grass where Tonks was sitting. Knowing she would tell Dumbledore about the owls and letters, and considering he asked for packages from several bookstores and other stores, and by receiving certain owls made them watch him more closely. Harry could smirk. He was going to have fun running the order of fried chicken ragged, but first things first would be new clothes and the responses from both Neville and Luna. At the beginning of summer, he got letters from Neville saying Dumbledore told him that he should have no contact with Harry. However, Neville, showing why he was in Gryffindor, ignored the order and sent Harry letters anyways, along with telling Luna, who joined the pair by sending letters. At first, he didn't want to believe it, his friends not contacting him over the summer under Dumbledore's orders. However, Neville never lied to Harry and Sirius confirmed it himself in a letter he managed to sneak off with Hedwig, and both Ron and Hermione's letters shattered his delusions, leaving a steaming pile of teen angst-filled emotions. However, when one of Order members almost captured Luna's owl during the first month of the summer was when he started to keep track of the schedule of the Order member rotation and sent them to both Luna and Neville, telling when it was okay to send letters and when not to unless it was an emergency. We will have a lot to discuss and sort tonight, won't we, Heim? She nodded and pressed her forehead against his own, disappearing from his sight, but he could feel her presence within him, and that suited him just fine. Lean back on the mattress and read his letter from Neville first and said the following. Hey Harry. Hope your relatives are leaving you alone and I was finally able to send this letter to you. Gran has been poking her nose around in my business considering I have been constantly sending letters and receiving them and she been asking. But I just told her it was for a friend and she been getting annoyed by the same answer and wants more details. However, I will not sell you out. Ron and Hermione may follow Dumbledore to the letter, but I won't. I will not leave you alone when you helped me and became my friend, and friends stick together, and I will be your shield if you need me to be. Potters and Longbottoms have been in an alliance for centuries, and I will not break it because of some old man with tacky robes and a fetish for lemon drops. I hope the books on the history of the magical world, the laws of the magical world, and the history of the magical blood of Britain I managed to get. I hope they find you well. Ask the goblins for more details. Just owl me if you need anything. Your godbrother, Neville Frank Longbottom. Harry chuckled. He definitely affected Neville from afar. He wondered if he became friends in the past would have done before he shook his head. The past was in the past. What he needed now was move forward for the future and make sure he has no more losses. He already lost his parents. He nearly lost Sirius, who is locked up like he is, and he lost Cedric. He will not lose anyone else because of the dark and light tossers. I am happy the Raxperts are not bothering you. Anyone? It seemed that you had a lot of them during the first month of summer, but I am happy they are gone from you now. I am also glad you let me your friend, and I promise to watch out other creatures that might pop out from any corner. Dumbledore has not contacted me, so I think he doesn't think I am your friend, so that's good. I will help you in any way that I can, considering you did help me and found my stuff and the picture of my mom that was locked away in Cho's trunk, so you have my thanks. I hope I will see you soon this summer if you can get away from your watchers. I wish they weren't so infested with nargles just like Dumbledore is. I will be by your side, always remember that. Your friend, Luna Lovegood. Thank you both, Harry thought, and then hid the letters underneath the floorboards of the room. However, he was brought out his pleasant mood when he heard, "Boy, what is it now?" Harry stood up and walked down the steps, and Vernon turned red, bordering on purple at the sight of the freak. "What freaky things have you done to yourself, boy?" "I don't know what you mean." "You know what I mean, damn it," he said, spitting everywhere. "Vernon, the neighbors," Petunia said, tugging his sleeve. Vernon tried breathing deeply, but Harry knew was going to pop a vein soon enough. Harry thought, maybe it will kill him and I don't have to deal with them anymore. "Boy, you will undo this freakishness right now," he gritted out, getting more and more enraged at the sight of the boy. "As you already know, Uncle, I am not allowed to do freaky stuff, remember? Only he can do that." The Dursleys gulped as they suddenly recalled the threat. "Then what happened to the fridge? I am sure you used—" Harry blocked out whatever horseshit was dribbling out of Vernon's mouth until he was sure he stopped talking. "I don't eat much, remember? Plus, didn't you all eat before me? All that was left were scraps," Harry said blandly. Vernon and Dudley bought the explanation quickly, but Petunia didn't but held her long tongue for once, not wanting to be anywhere near her freakish nephew any longer than she had to. "If that is all," Harry drawled. No replies were given, and so Harry made his way back upstairs and locked the door behind him, not taking the chance if the Dursleys want some form of payback for their own misguided reasons. It was a week later that Harry thought back about the deal he made with the Dursleys, considering that it would benefit them all. "What is it, freak? Us. You normal people have lives to do, I've heard it before. Whatever. I have a proposition for you all." "Does have to do with you dying in a ditch?" Dudley said, filled with hope. "No dudders, it does have plan B, which includes turning you into a pig and sending you to a slaughterhouse," Harry said, malevolently. Dudley shut up at that. Vernon turned red and was about to start shouting until Petunia put a hand on his shoulder, silently telling him to mind his blood pressure. "All right, boy. What is your proposition?" Petunia sneered. "Simple. I get out of the house early in the morning before you wake up and come back later, so you barely see me during the day and afternoon. We could always lock you out, freak." Vernon spat. The thought of his nephew being locked out appealed to him the more he thought about it. "Then the freaks outside will get mad at you, and then there are other freaks who take great pleasure in ripping people like you, your wife, and son apart for fun and sport. Now before Vernon blows a gasket, this will keep out of each other's way. I don't like you all. In fact, I hate you all. However, the barrier around the house needs to be recharged, and then I am leaving. The sooner I find a way to never return here, the better. That's my second greatest wish," Harry said, turning towards the stairs. "What's your greatest wish, freak?" Dudley said, thinking it was something stupid. The room suddenly became 20 degrees lower as he slowly turned to face his relatives. "To kill all of you." Harry then turned back upstairs as the temperature rose back up to normal, but the Dursleys were in a state of shock and fear. Fear that ran throughout the very marrow of their bones, and they made damn sure to stay as far away as possible from Harry. Dudley still has nightmares about his cousin's cold green eyes suddenly flashing red and then killing him and his entire family, making him piss his bedsheets nearly every night, much to his mother's disgust. Vernon put the threat out of his mind and just rewired his simple brain into ignoring the freak existed at all, which suited him just fine. Petunia, on the other hand, knew she was going to get from her sister when she passed on to the other side along with her parents. She had no right in doing what she did, but the jealousy of her sister Lily blinded her to her faults. Harry was happy in using the next half of the week by making the order flop around like a bunch of chickens. Sometimes he would disappear for hours on end, only to return at the end of the day with no signs that he left the house at all. After that, he took to running around town. When he stepped outside the next morning when it was Tonk's shift, he could swear on his magic that he heard her choke on her own spit and then stumble into Petunia's rose bushes. He was a lot different from the skinny boy that entered Pivot Drive during the start of the summer, and when he looked both ways and when she was about to call for his attention. He took off in a burst of speed. Tonks tore after him. However, Harry, having many years of practice from running from Dudley and his gang, so he could run full speed for a long time. Tonks, however, was not used to running long distances and at high speeds. It was only Mad Eye Moody's training that barely let her keep him in her sights, and she had a feeling he was holding back. As he ran around the town, and he took a break at a local diner and took a seat near a window and gave Tonks a drink, which she downed in one gulp and took to glare at the cheeky smirk he was giving her, hidden from the rest of the patrons in the area. He took to eating many plates, and when he was handed the bill, he took pounds from Petunia and Vernon's wallets. Did I mention that Benaim taught him how to silently steal people's stuff? Yeah. Harry then got up, stretching as he walked, and went towards the exit, grinding his feet into the concrete. He smirked in Tonks' general direction and tore off again, leaving her to once again go after him, thinking, he better not do this only during my shift, or there is going to be hell to pay. She thought as she put more magic into her muscles as he kept running and gaining speed. He ran back to the Dursleys and closed the gate behind him and silently placing the wallets back where he took them from, with the Dursleys none the wiser. Harry went upstairs, locking the door, and went to meditate, and found himself in his landscape with his princess at his side, and took to reviewing and sorting through his past memories. It gave him a lot to think about, and while Harry was reviewing everything, before he could fill the gaps of knowledge he was missing during the 4 years he spent in the magical world. A meeting was held at the headquarters of the Order of Phoenix, and Tonks stumbled in, but surprisingly didn't manage to wake up Mrs. Black's portrait. She made her way into the kitchen, looking like she'd just been put through Moody's hellish training sessions, only 4 times worse. When she finally sat down, her head fell on the table with a thump as if she didn't have the energy to lift her head anymore. At Grimmauld Place Order Meeting. Grimmauld Place #12. The members of the Order of Phoenix were gathered around the table. Sirius was in one corner as Remus sat in front of him at the table as Moody sat in the corner of the room where he could keep an eye on everyone. Severus was in another corner of the room, glowering at everyone with the occasional twitch from the torture curse. Good day, everyone. Does anyone have any information they like to share about the Ministry? Dumbledore asked, starting off the meeting. Shacklebolt stated, Fudge is still denying that Voldemort is back and cutting off payments in the Auror department, causing animosity in the department and pissing off Madame Bones to no end. Dumbledore looked sad. I see. What other news? Just the rubbish they call a newspaper is slandering both yours and Harry's names, a member said, throwing the prophet down on the table, with another conspiracy story written by Rita. Merlin, I hate that woman, a female member said, shaking her head. You and everyone else, Sirius thought. The door opened and walked in Tonks, who looked like she was put through a wringer. She barely managed to get herself into a seat before letting her head fall on the cold table with a groan. Molly rushed towards her with Sirius at Tonks' side. Tonks, Tonks, Sirius yelled, shaking the female Auror. Ugh, don't yell. I'm fine, she moaned. You're not fine, lass. Why do you look like you just got put through a wringer and can barely stand up? Moody said, staring at Tonks with both eyes. Harry, Tonks moaned. Huh? Harry did this to you? Molly asked, shocked. No, he just ran around the town. Where the hell does that kid get his energy? I have no idea. Harry ran away, Molly yelled, waking the portrait in which Sirius had to go and silence the portrait. No, he was always in the area where the shield surrounding his house was, and he made sure I was in his sights and he was mine. However, I say this. If he wanted to run away, he would have done it already. That kid ran full speed for so long, I thought I was going to throw up my lungs. I guess Mad Eye is losing his touch if you are that weak, Snape smirked at the downed Auror. Ha, ha, laugh it up, you greasy git. Whenever it is your turn, I hope Harry runs full speed and runs you over, and when he does, make sure to send pictures, please. Tonks said, much to Sirius' amusement and Snape's renewed sneer. This isn't good. Harry should not leave his house, Dumbledore said, shaking his head. Lay off him a bit. If he wants to run around the area, he can. He doesn't leave the area where the protection is spread over and the Dark Lord can't reach him, Sirius said in response. We need to keep a tighter grip on him, Albus said, not wanting Harry to move. Bad move, Albus. The more you squeeze, the more your prey will try to escape, and a great chance they will break free. Sirius thought with a smirk. Now that we are on the topic of Harry, any other changes anyone wishes to discuss? The lad has been reading a lot of his old books for one, especially his defense ones, minus the second year. He has also been exercising or caring for his owl and looking at the window. While he is looking out, I can swear that he know where we are, Mad Eye said. But the cloaks. The brat couldn't fight his way out of a wet paper bag. Nevertheless find the positions of his watchers, Snape interrupted. When will get that massive stick out of your ass when it comes to Harry? Seriously, you only hate him because of James, and I'd admit that I was an asshole growing up. However, you can't pretend you are fucking victim, and actually you are worse than both James and I put together, considering you haven't grown up. What, you mong? Snape growled. Severus. Sirius. Stand down now. Both men were eye to eye and snarling. However, they returned to their proper places, never taking their eyes off each other. Severus? Snape brushed himself off. The Dark Lord was found withering in pain in his bed this morning, and the result came from Potter's blood, and all the Inner Circle members gave the Dark Lord a part of their blood. Really? Yes, apparently the brat's blood is rotten for even the Dark Lord. Shut the fuck up, Snape. I hope your pathetic master chokes on the blood your cronies give him. All right, enough. Severus, continue doing what you are doing. Everyone who is watching Harry make sure he cannot leave his house. Molly, Arthur, I need Ronald and Hermione, and have to discuss something important with them, if you don't mind. Of course not, Albus. Okay, everyone dismissed, meeting over. Severus walked out of the room with his billowing cloak and normal sneer. Soon, all you traitors and mudblood lovers will die, and I will be laughing at your maggot-like deaths with the winning side. Snape thought a large fading moon-shaped scar was across his wrist. Surrey, Britain, Dursley home. A 5-year-old boy with messy black hair and green eyes was cooking Christmas dinner, and he hasn't eaten for 3 days. He knew he wouldn't get to eat anything. He was worked to the bone, skinny as could be, and the winter chill was not helping. Boy, go to your cupboard and stay there. Yes, Aunt Petunia, he said with his head lowered. He didn't want to attract any more trouble and went towards his prison yet safe haven. However, a squeaky voice, that no doubt belonged to the Dursleys' only son, a fat tub of lard even at the age of 5, who was looking at Harry with a certain gleam in his beady eyes, as if him getting into trouble was his favorite pastime. Harry went inside the cupboard and waited for the familiar lock to snap in place, to which it did a few seconds later. However, after an hour of familiar hunger pains, Dudley's complaints, Petunia fussing over him, he heard the door slam open. Vernon was home. He curled up into a ball as he mentally prepared his body for the attacks Vernon would inflict. He knew what type of emotion Vernon had the second he opened the door. He was angry. No, he was past angry. He was livid and was more than willing to use Harry as a punching bag. The usual routine was to hug his son and then kissed his wife. Petunia then whispered something that relit Vernon's anger as she pointed a bony finger to the cupboard with thinly veiled disgust. He nodded and stomped over to the door with many locks and unlocked them slowly with the intent for the freak to be afraid. However, Harry learned quickly before the age of 5 to not show emotions when his relatives were around, or they would just hurt him more. The door was thrown open, and he was grabbed by a giant meaty fist and undid his belt, brandishing the buckle, and whipped Harry's back, spitting insult. However, Harry kept silent. Vernon didn't like that, considering he wanted the freak to scream. However, a dark thought came to mind as he remembered a certain belt he had specifically made and went upstairs. Harry didn't move as taunts from both Petunia and Dudley went off his back just as the beating would. It was normal for him as he has grown numb to it. However, he didn't see Vernon come back with a belt filled with spikes. A meaty hand grabbed his torn and bloody shirt and ripped it open. The back filled with welts, and Vernon brought the belt down with force, and Harry could stop the scream that came out from his mouth as a wave of fresh pain slammed through his brain. 10 minutes of this brought Harry to tears as he tried his best not to cry out anymore. This belt was way worse with than the plain one. Harry was falling in and out of consciousness. This is it. I'm going to die. I don't want to die. I want to live, Harry thought before passing out completely. The freak is dead, Petunia dear, Vernon smirked. Now, You what? A voice said, coming from Harry. Huh? The two Dursleys looked at the bleeding boy, standing up as if seemingly unaffected from the beating he just received. The 5-year-old blubberball started to wail, but Harry snapped his fingers, silencing him. You freak, what did you do to my... Your pathetic son is fine, Vernon. I'm not Harry. I'm his guardian and I have been watching him ever since he was born. I may be a cruel person to those that know me, but I would never do such things to a child. You both are disgusting wenches, not even worthy to lick a demon's worn feet. How dare you, Petunia started off. How dare I? You miserable wench. Don't you dare take the moral high road with me, considering you allow your nephew to be beaten. When you die, whether by this child's hand, my own, Fate's, or even your sister's, you will get your dues. I only beating the freakiness out of him. I guess it's pointless. Freaks will be freaks. Vernon said, sneering, trying to hide his fear, even though it coated him like a blanket. You dare call him a freak? Who the hell do you think you are? A moral, upstanding citizen, Vernon said, proudly. If you are an example of an upstanding citizen, then I am glad to be a freak. No matter. You will get your dues eventually. However, Vernon Dursley, if you ever think of what you just went past go through your puny mind again, I will come out and I will take great pleasure in slaughtering your family and no one will know. Do you understand? He nodded yes. Good boy, now none of this ever happened. Hopefully the next time I see you all will be either when the boy is killing you or in hell. I'm patient, so either is fine with me. Harry snapped his fingers. The blood that came from the lashings returned back to him as he shrugged and snapped several bones back into place. Just remember, I'm always watching, Harry said, coldly. Harry then wandered back to his cupboard and put the lock in place. The Dursleys were too scared to eat and went upstairs to sleep off the fear. A pale form of Benyam had her arms wrapped around the sleeping form of Harry Potter, who snuggled closer to her in her lap as she ran fingers through his messy hair. A day later, when Harry was tending to the garden outside in the bitter cold, he heard an unfamiliar sound of something popping, but held in his curiosity as he heard Vernon and Petunia yelling at someone. Then it became silent. You are to continue to abuse Harry Potter. However, you are not to molest or fuck him. If he is downtrodden like I ordered, you will continue to get your monthly payments, a voice said. Yes, master, the two Dursleys said, under the effects of the man's spell. Obliviate, another weird popping sound, and then there was no noise. When he walked inside, he was greeted by his uncle's fist, and then lights out. Harry was wandering around the hallways of Hogwarts. His friends have been acting slightly cold towards him at this moment. Ron always seemed to make rude comments and sneers behind Harry's back, knowing he could hear them, but those were few. Hermione, while still helpful, was now annoying for a lack of a better term. It started when Harry got a better grade in charms, outshining Hermione, causing her to always grab his homework and check it over, and whenever he needed her help, she would offer it, but be very condescending about it, leaving the green-eyed boy confused beyond belief. A red flash of light hit him in the back, and as he fell to the floor silent, he heard the voices of both Hermione and Ron coming up behind him. Hurry, Ron. We need to get him to Dumbledore. I'm going. Who the hell does he think he's fooling with his giant clothes? Is he looking for pity or something? He has loads of money but never uses it, Pratt. Whatever, Dumbledore will make his grades worse than mine, and around the same as yours so people don't get suspicious. Right, when are we getting our money again? After we give him to Dumbledore, remember? Oh. Harry finally fell unconscious as hands grabbed his robe and dragged him to Dumbledore's office. Harry had dark circles underneath his eyes from the nightmares about the graveyard and was just about to knock on the door of Dumbledore's office for advice. He heard voices. He couldn't stop himself from being curious and pressed his ear against the door to listen in. What he heard shocked him. How is Harry Potter's state so far? Bloody annoying, that's what? Ron. Don't pretend you buy into his zombie act. He's the boy who lived, remember? He could have saved Cedric but didn't. I bet all his nightmares are all horsepucky. Actually, Mr. Weasley, this is a secret I expect both of you to keep. Harry is going to be having visions of the Dark Lord, so I need you to keep in contact with him. Just short letters and nothing concrete, and have him tell you about his visions. So, yes, you get to be in the order and training from Aurors and special permission of the library and an extra pay raise. Do you understand? Yes, sir. Harry could barely breathe. He let out a raspy breath and bolted. The people inside the office didn't even glance at the door. He hid the shadows as he felt a warm pair of arms wrap around him as female voice lulled him to sleep as he cried, hidden deep within the shadows of Hogwarts for the entire day. Hermione gave him a lot of grief for missing classes, but the situation was pushed to the far reaches of his mind. He didn't want to believe it. He didn't want to believe his friends were never truly his friends. He couldn't believe it. Not without the truth shattering him entirely. Flashback ends. Harry came out of his meditative state. He felt many things, but ignorant and a perverted form of innocence was long gone, and it was not coming back. He opened his eyes. The green in them were sharp, and he felt complete. Remember everything now, have you? Yes, I do. There is going to be hell to pay. Harry sneered. Benaim brought him closer to her, keeping his head in her lap as she ran fingers through his hair. Bloodshed and the dead bodies of your enemies at your feet, perhaps. That, and after that, I'm leaving this shithole of a country and never returning. Who are you planning to take with you? Neville, Luna, and Sirius are the first ones that come to mind. But not Lupin? Too close to Dumbledore for comfort. I can't have that. Not now. I see. Benaim. Yes? Can you please train me? Oh. Yes. I want to be someone who can wield you in combat properly. She smiled and nodded, leaning down to kiss the boy in her lap. You are one of a kind, you know. The training will hard and I will not go easy on you. Training mentally and physically are very different. I can only do so much in your mind, dear Harry. However, you will need someone who can teach you how to wield a sword and practice with it, if you are going to wield me properly. Of course. Benaim then went to explain all the types of Kaido, of both Bakudo and Hado techniques along with counter magic. Whether or not it works on wizards and their wands is something that needs to be experimented on. Over the course of 2 weeks, Harry has been eating outside regardless of whatever guard is outside, doing his early morning run and eating full meals out, no matter how many warnings his watchers give him. As he did another of his morning walks, he came across a store he didn't recognize. It was a weird small store for a town like Surrey. However, he decided he would enter. He slid the door open and the lights were off. Someone must have left the door open. Harry shook his head and was about to leave until a cheerful voice rang out, startling him, and turned around to see an older man wearing a green and white hat with clogs and had a cane. "Hello," the man said, waving his fan. Harry's room. Harry came out of his meditative state and went to take a shower. The Dursleys were staying away from him and let him do what he wanted as long as he was out of their hair and they were out of his. Harry looked at the mirror, seeing that eating full meals, exercise, Benaim's help, and his magic made the consequences from his past malnourishment, and a few scars were finally gone. His training with Benaim showed in his eyes. His eyes turned a dark emerald green that deepened to black when angry, and several red highlights in his hair. When he asked Benaim about it, she told him that since they have connected, he would obtain several parts from her both mentally and physically. The red highlights in his hair would be the start of her influence on him. Bits and pieces of her personality would appear in his own sooner rather than later, but he would still be the same, just a bit darker. She had some qualms about telling him about the changes, but Harry quelled her fears and told her that he appreciated her telling him instead of waiting at the last second. He told her that he accepted her fully and that he would have been darker considering the betrayals by his so-called friends turned spies. All that was needed was balance and the training to keep him from going over the edge. Harry went out, wrapping a towel around his waist, and went to the bedroom, getting his trunk that he managed to snag from the cupboard, along with his wand. He kept it near him. However, now that he looked at it, he felt a cold draw to it, not the warm feeling of warmth when he first had it, which rang large alarm bells in his head. He decided he would go to the goblins as soon as possible and would write Neville and Luna as soon as he could. He glanced outside, slightly opening the window, and when the scent of liquor hit him, he smiled before closing the window. He then got dressed in clothes that actually fit him nicely. A week ago, an entire wardrobe full, and Harry wondered with glee at what sort of face Ron would make when he got on the train and was not wearing his rags. Harry exited the house and looked both ways, hearing the not-so-subtle heavy breathing of dung as he walked to the nearest bus stop, where he waited for a Muggle bus to take him to the train station, and he raced towards platform 934, abandoning the cart as he entered, keeping his hood up, hiding his scar and moppy black and red hair, which would make him immediately noticed. He briskly walked towards Goblin Bank of Gringotts and entered, waiting for his turn until he came upon a familiar face. "Griffook?" said Goblin's head, snapped up to look at the strange wizard wearing Muggle clothes with a hood covering half his face. "Should I be aware of who you are, wizard?" "Well, you are the first goblin I have ever met, and it's nice to see you again, Mr. Griffook," Harry said, taking off his hood, showing his messy hair, green eyes, and lighting-shaped scar. "Prove that you are Harry James Potter," the goblin said, not missing a beat. Harry leaned out his hand, and the goblin took a knife to it, slashing a line clear across his palm, and he didn't even bat an eye. The blood was then collected into a bowl, and soon the results came, and it proved that the young man in front of him was indeed Harry James Potter, and he had now discovered all the things that were hidden from him. Griffook was gritting his teeth at the list of inconveniences on the piece of parchment before him, wanting it to burst into flames. However, what stopped him cold was the deadly tone in Harry Potter's voice. "Mr. Griffook, I think I need to have a chat with you to discuss several misdemeanors. Would be all right with you?" "Of course, please follow me." Normally he would send any and every wizard to wait out. However, the deadly tone in Harry's voice had all his senses screaming at him to do the wizard's bidding. The only good thing about this situation was that he actually asked and not demanded. That, and no one could blame him if they saw how his eyes flashed red and almost made him feel faint for a second. The meeting was then taken to the office, where the discussion went to Harry cutting off all the people who were stealing from him, and that he wanted the money and the items that were taken to be disposited back into his vault, and for the thieves to pay with interest. Along with that, removing the mind-altering potions he was under with flushing magic potion that made steam blow out of his ears, clearing his head of Dumbledore propaganda. He had his wand checked, and when he found that it has been tampered with, and he had the goblins take care of it, and he was pointed to the direction to a wand store that did not have ministry tracking charms. There he would find himself a new wand, and he made the marriage contract between Ginny and himself null and void. However, before Harry was about to leave, Harry asked, "Mr. Griffook, do you have the transcript for Sirius Black's trail?" "Can I ask why?" Griffook asked. "To see if Fudge has actually covered his tracks, or he left a massive paper trail." Griffook looked at the young man in front of him strangely and pulled out several manila folders that had the Black registry, but as he looked through it, showed no record of Sirius Black ever receiving a trial. No. He was not given a trial. If he was, then Gringotts would have his vaults drained under the law, but his vaults are still frozen. Then I claim them under the title of heir of the Black family. So mote it be. Harry couldn't stop the smirk appearing on his face. Apparently Fudge is not doing his job, considering that Sirius was sent to Azkaban without a trial. So, the Ministry has turned a blind eye to this mistake, correct? So, it seems. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. I will speak to the director immediately and contact Amelia Bones, considering she is one of the few honest workers in the Ministry. The goblin could only nod in agreement. The wizard and goblin said their goodbyes and went their separate ways, Harry bringing his hood up, showing 6 rings, 3 on each hand. Harry exited the bank and went to the wand shop to get his new wand that was no longer connected to Voldemort, breaking all ties with him. Harry came out of the unnamed wand shop, happier considering his wand was still 12 inches long, but it was now lime wood instead of holly, with a grim and dragon heartstring tied together, bathed in the blood of their new owner. This particular wand shop makes specific magic wands only for the user, and with Harry's blood having both phoenix tears and basilisk venom, it was one of a kind. When the wand crafter asked how the young man came to have resources of 2 powerful creatures in his blood, Harry told the story of the chamber, and the wand crafter told him afterward about the high price of basilisk venom and its parts, and Harry took the information to heart. "I will sell the corpse when I get to school," I want to see the look on Snape's face when he sees the basilisk being sold and he cannot have any of the rare ingredients and just the old sheddings. Harry walked out of the magical world and into the muggle one and then went for walking. He went inside the store he went to several days ago, meeting a strange eccentric man with a white and green hat who wore clogs and wielded a cane. Flashback start. Someone must have left the door open. Harry shook his head and was about to leave until a cheerful voice rang out, startling him, and he turned around to see a man who raised an arm and said, "Hello?" "Hello, sorry I was in your shop. I didn't realize it was closed." "It's not closed, it's barely morning." "Actually, sir, it is 3 in the afternoon." "Oh, is it?" the man said, tilting his head. Any other time, he would have thought this man to be someone who was not a threat, considering the way he stood was almost lazy with shaded dark blue eyes hidden in a green and white striped hat and clogs along with stubble across his jaw. That would be it, lazy and childlike. However, he was not trained by Benaim for no reason. All senses rang out. He was an opponent of high skill with a dark shadow. "What's your name, sir?" You can call Mr. Hat and Clogs for now. My name is not important." "Very well, my name is Harry Potter. It was nice to meet you, Mr. Hat and Clogs, but I must be going." "Are you sure? Don't you need help with your soul cutter?" Harry's head snapped up in attention because of the semi-creepy smile of the man in front of him. "What do you know?" Flashback end. For an old man, he sure is powerful, Harry thought, coming back from the grueling training session, a wooden sword in a bag along with his gi. At a strange candy store. Mr. Hat and Clogs was looking up at the sky, his hat covering his dark eyes. "He is going to do many great things, isn't that right, Heim?" A warm hum came from the cane he had across his lap, making a large grin light up his face before he pushed it back down. At Grimmauld Place, Dumbledore called for both Ron and Hermione to meet with him alone. Ginny went to her room and the twins groaned and left the room to the 3, plots on their minds. "Have any of you heard from Harry?" "No, apparently he got the message that we're not going to tell him anything, and he is throwing a fit by not sending us anything," Ron said, annoyed at the topic of Potter already. "This is not good. He needs to tell you about the visions." "We will contact him once more. How about just a bit of information that is not relevant, but we make it seem like it is?" Dumbledore closed his eyes and mentally counted from 1 to 10 with the idiots he had to work with. He should not be burdened with such responsibility right now. "However, your idea has merit. Please send a letter immediately." "Of course." "Sure. When are we?" "You will begin your training with Moody, Shaq, and Tonks tomorrow. Please keep it a secret. It is for Harry's own benefit after all." Dumbledore smiled. Dumbledore left the room and left the two to their thoughts. There are actually benefits to being friends with Potter. "About damn time," Ron said with a sneer. "Of course, there is. Soon, training under Auror's and Dumbledore's plan. Besides, he is going to die anyways. At least we get something out it," Hermione said. "Ginny actually has to marry the Pratt, though." "Don't worry. She has been dreaming about this her whole life, hasn't she? She gets her dream. I won't have to deal with being in Potter's shadow. After all, if it wasn't for us, the things he did wouldn't have happened, and we will finally get the respect we deserve." As they bragged and thought about how smart they were, they didn't notice semi-quiet footsteps walking away from the door. As a door closed, 2 mutual sighs of disgust filled the room. Fred looked at his twin and nodded. They needed to contact Harry and fast. In another room, Ginny was writing in her diary with a small smile on her face. The people outside never noticed that she was muttering to herself, "Harry Potter can't die. After all, we are going to have 3 kids with him being an Auror and him showering her with gifts. Even if does find someone ensnares him, he must be under a spell or potion. He has been mine since childbirth, and he doesn't want me, then I just have to convince him. I'm pretty the public wouldn't mind. If he was cut short 2 legs, I just take him everywhere, and he can never leave me. We are soul mates. After all, he did save me." Ginny trailed off in a mad giggle. Her eyes flashed a familiar red, and a face-splitting grin appeared on her face. "Hello, Luna. Thank you for the concern. However, the little charm you gave me prevented the Nargles from getting to me, and for that I thank you. Also, I wanted to ask, how are things on your side? Doing well, I hope. Did you find the new creature you were hunting for with your dad yet? I hope so. I want to see the look on Hermione's face when one of your non-existent creatures actually do exist. Anyways, besides that, I want you to come over. I have a new friend that is training me, and I hope you could train with me before the school starts. I want you and Neville to be safe, and considering that you are close to me, I want you to have something that can protect you besides just your wand. If you do, please meet me at the entrance at platform 934 on Friday if you have nothing to do. Contact me soon. Harry Potter. Hello, Neville. I want to thank you for the books you gave me along with the advice to check out the goblins, as they were really helpful. That, and I found several wrongdoings pertaining to me, thanks to Dumbledore, Ronald, and Hermione. Besides that, how are things with your gran? I hope she gives you some space. However, this may be hard for you, but I want you to come to meet me at the entrance at platform 934 on Friday. It is because I have a new friend who is training me, and considering that you are close to me, I want you to have something that can back you up. Besides your wand, you don't have to come if you don't want to. However, I am making the same offer to Luna. Contact me soon. Harry Potter. He attached the letters to Hedwig, and she left to do her assignment and reached Longbottom Manor first. Hedwig tapped on the window, and Neville opened it, rubbed the snowy owl on the head, and giving her a treat. Neville took the letter off of the owl's leg and read it. No problem, Harry. Where did I leave my spare parchment? He said, more to himself as he looked around. He hid the letter in the drawer that could only be opened by him, and he found a piece of parchment to write his response. Hello, Harry. I got your letter from Hedwig, and I am writing this to tell you that I accept your idea of training, and I will be there at the entrance on Friday. I will see you soon enough, and I hope you will tell me what you need to tell me soon enough. I am anxious enough already. I will tell you what is happening over here when I meet with you at the entrance. Neville Longbottom. He tied the letter to the owl's leg and watched her fly off into the distance, and a shout from downstairs caught his attention. Neville. Coming, Gran. He rushed downstairs to deal with another talk interrogation from his grandmother. Soon after, Hedwig goes to the Lovegood home and barked to catch the attention of the dreamy-eyed girl in the forest near her home, and she lifted an arm, and to which Hedwig sat on the offered arm and nuzzled against her. Hello, girl. How is Harry? Hedwig barked in answer, to which Luna nodded. I see. Another letter from Harry, apparently. Do you want a treat or water? It must be a long way back home. Hedwig ruffled her feathers as an answer. I take that as yes. Luna walked back to her house, being careful not to jostle the snowy owl, and reached up to her room. She opened the door, and Hedwig flew to a perch beside the open window, drinking a filled water bowl and several treats, as Luna read her letter. She nodded and replied back. Hello, Harry. I actually did find such a creature on a trip with my dad, and I will bring it to Hogwarts. When you find me on the train, you will see, but I will tell you about it later on. I accept your idea of training, and I will meet you at the entrance on Friday. I will see you then. Luna Lovegood. She tied the letter to Hedwig and sending her off with a pat on the head, and watched as she flew off back to her master. Harry was sitting on a rooftop, basking in the sun, the guard who around this time was Shaq, and he smiled at the reaction he had to his new changes. It seemed he was getting more radical. They probably think I am still moping around, waiting for slivers of news for what is going on in the magical world. Idiots. A familiar owl came into view. They are sending a letter already. Don't worry, Princess. I will not be pulled under their control again. The owl drew closer until it stopped at the side of him, lifting a leg up for him to take the letter. Harry took the letter from the owl, and the bird flew away, its job complete. Hello, dear investor. We were finally able to sneak this letter out of the house under the noses of Ichelronikins and the Tattletale with the help of the legendary Sirius Black, whose message is underneath ours. We wanted to tell you that we support you, and we found out something that made us sick. Apparently, Ron and Hermione are not your friends, and that they are receiving training, money, and books from Dumbledore and the Order, and they are riding on your fame by spying on you. We had no idea, and we write to tell you to not shut us out because of them. Just know we are with you if you need anything. Fred and George. Harry? I believe them, Princess. They may be pranksters, But they wouldn't go behind my back, and considering I always thought of them as brothers, I just hope Arthur is not a part of null and void marriage contract. Hey Pop. To read the rest of the message, say the correct phrase. I solemnly swear I am up to no good. The letter's message wavered for a bit before the words rearranged themselves into an entirely new message. Hey Pup. I was finally able to sneak a letter off, and when I stumbled in on the twins sending you one. Thank Merlin for that. I'm sure you are aware that the Order is spying on you and the things happening in the wizarding world. But the short version is that Fudge is denying the return of Voldemort and trying to pin the blame on you and Dumbledore, and is using the Daily Prophet to drag your names through the mud. That, and I hate having to tell you to keep your nose clean. But I don't want you to get in trouble, and considering my status as a prisoner, I do not want to lose you. I already did once and nearly did again, but not now. Anyways, enough moody stuff. What I wanted to tell you before I finish this letter is that when Snivelus is on guard duty, can you run him over with your speed and send pictures? By the way, Nymph sends her love, so be wary the next time you see her. Patty. Your godfather is all types of weird. I know, but he's family and he can help me cause havoc. But first, dealing with fucking Fudge and the Ministry. At the platform 934. Luna came out first, and then Neville, both of them taking their turns greeting him. Harry replied, I'm glad you guys can make it. Wouldn't miss it, Neville said, starting to walk. Luna asked, so this old man will help us with training. Yep, you guys were not followed right, Harry said, glancing behind him. Yes, Neville said. I checked, Luna replied. Harry said, great. Soon the group arrived at a nondescript candy store. What is this, Harry? Neville said, confused. You will see. Come in, Harry said, opening the door. Luna entered in first and Neville trailed after them, still a bit skeptical. A voice then called out in the darkness of the store. So these are your friends, Harry? Yes, Mr. Hat and Clogs. Mr. Hat and Clogs, Luna and Neville asked. Said man entered the light, showing why he was called such. Ah, I see. Because he wears a hat and clogs. That and I have a fan, he said, childishly, flicking open his fan. I see. So you are going to train us? Neville asked. Depends. Are you up for it? Yes, we are. Luna and Neville said, determined. They are a determined pair, aren't they? He said to Harry. Yes, and I'm glad that they have my back, Harry replied, smiling at his friends who smiled back. You know they will probably be cursing the both of us after this. Maybe, but I did the same, and it was satisfying when I prank your ass for an entire day when I was able to capture you, even with you holding back. His smirk was hidden by his open fan. An hour later. Harry James Potter, I hate you so much and I hope I get to bring you so much hell when I get the chance, Neville yelled out, collapsing onto the hard ground. I'm not a giant fan of either of you either, Luna said, falling down on her knees from exhaustion. I love the both you two, Harry replied back with a smile. The trio was running many laps and stretching out your limbs, which was the warm-up for the real training. Mr. Hat and Clogs entered the conversation and said, Now, I am going to put you to sleep. Huh? What? The two were suddenly pulled into a deep sleep. They are going to kill us. For this, you know, Harry, Kasuk said, looking at the green-eyed boy. Maybe, but I remain optimistic that they will be happy with their new companions. Harry crossed his legs and meditated until he reached his mindscape. An endless field of bloody spider lily flowers. Benyam was kneeling in a field of flowers, her mismatched eyes open to look at Harry, and she smiled, always wanting him in her arms. Not that he minded in the least bit. Their physical contact with each other warmed and healed each other. They were ripped away from each before, and Benyam could only watch from behind his eyes all the pain he had to go through. Their hearts were made for each other. However, the scars on Harry's made him reluctant to open up, but the Crimson Princess was getting closer and closer. Welcome back, Harry. Are your friends cursing your existence yet? Not entirely, just Neville. And the little blonde one. Luna will be after me soon enough. I see. Don't worry, Princess. My heart is yours alone. Besides, she has a thing for Neville after all. She is the only one that can get him to laughter until his ribs hurt and can make him stand straight. Seems like a perfect match. I'm well aware. She sat up straighter and said, "Oh." "What is it?" Harry asked, sitting up. "Apparently, your friends have awoken, and they are waiting for you." "Thank you, Princess." She nodded and planted a kiss on his forehead and held him against her until he faded away from the Mindscape. "Welcome back, you two." "Whoa." "Whoa, indeed, Harry. I can see why you called us here," Luna said. She changed. Her features from before were soft, but now they were sharp. A heart-shaped face, blue eyes like a frozen lake. Her pale blonde hair was now silver blonde and the ends were curled and tied with a silver ribbon with an ice crystal. She was slightly taller, her lips filled out giving her a pouty look, a button nose. She had a mix of both an ice queen and bubbly blonde. Neville, on the other hand, grew buff but lean, towering over Harry by a few inches. He was staring at Luna in a new light. His hair grew out and became darker and spiky. "I guess you met your companions?" Neville said. "Yep." Luna said, "Uh-huh, so you have your own." "Yes, her name is Benaim," he said, lifting the sword, showing them her sealed state. "She does not like to come out much since she is very attached to me." The sword hummed in agreement. "My companion goes by the name of Sode no Shiryuki. My companion goes by the name of Keishiny." "Congrats, you two. Now you just need to know how to wield a sword first, before you can wield your soul cutter." "I'll train with you and he is the teacher," Harry said, gesturing to the smiling man in the hat. "Yes, sir," they said, to Mr. Hat and Clogs. The rest of the day was spent in training how to correctly wield a sword and how to attack and defend. Soon all three collapsed on the hard floor of the training room, breathing hard. "Well, that is it for today." "Ugh, how long have we been here?" Several months." "Several months," Neville yelled in shock. Luna said, "Calm down, Neville. Throttling Harry will not help matters." "Fine," he pouted. "Thanks for the save, Luna," Harry said from behind the blonde girl. "You can thank me when you show me what you are planning when we get outside. You could always see between the lines. Just get your stuff and so we can go." They nodded and got dressed in the clothes they came with and looked at a clock showing that they have only been inside the candy store for a good 5 hours at least. Neville said in shock, "What the hell?" "That's what I said when he did it to me," Harry said, pointing his thumb to the smirking man with a fan. "He's a good person. If he wasn't we wouldn't even make it out the door," Luna said, coming out of the store with Neville following her. "I told you, she has the sight." "So, it seems, she's a bit quirky," Kisuk said, tilting his head. "So says the man that sleeps until 3 in the afternoon and makes a living giving candy to children." Kisuk shrugged. "Doesn't everyone have their way to get through life?" "True. See you later, sir." "Bye, Harry," waving the boy off and the door closed, leaving the Mr. Hat and Clogs to his thoughts. Makes me wonder what Aizen was thinking when he sent a horde of Gillians with their masks ripped off to this Azkaban prison. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 2. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Kourtney Uzu Yatoon FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.